Hey y'all. The other day I was using my cast iron skillet here and I was sitting there thinking about food, which is pretty normal for me. And a memory came to mind of Dutch babies, and we had some friends who introduced us to those. Gosh, it must have been 10 years ago or so. And I hadn't really thought much about them since. And yeah, I decided today I am going to play around with the Dutch baby in the cast iron skillet. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna put this recipe together, and I just thought we could play around a little bit. It is nice and crisp outside, and the Dutch baby feels like a really awesome slow weekend morning kind of a food. My mind kind of thinks more brunch on the Dutch baby, even though it seems to be fairly hands-off. And you really gotta be hands-off once this thing gets to temperature. So I think I'm gonna just bring you to my cutting board here, or to my prep space. We will just sort of put some stuff in a blender, see what happens, try to cook this thing up, and yeah, I don't know, let's just play. This recipe you can make in a blender. I'm gonna choose to use a blender beaker here, and I'm gonna set that to the side or smidge. And my immersion blender, which does tend to be a very well-loved small appliance in my kitchen. Get my trash can ready. I'm gonna use 3 eggs. Wash my hands. So a while back, I put out a video, and I do mean a while back, talking about ProFlow or Wendy's Power Flour or Protein Power Flour, any of those names. Basically, it was just the egg white bread that I dehydrated, ground up finely, and then stored in a jar. And I had some of this in my pantry still, so I decided that's the flour I would choose to use. I could also easily use my baking blend, but I thought, you know, I've got this. I want to see how this would do. I know I should probably not be measuring over top of my mixing vessel, but I don't usually do things I ought to do on a regular basis. Okay, half a cup of that. I do want a touch of sweetness in this, so I'm going to use some of my sweet blend. It's a blend of erythritol and powdered stevia. So that was 1.5 tablespoons of the sweet blend. And I'm going to use some almond milk, unsweetened original. And all of these ingredients are experimental at this point. I have no idea if this is going to actually work or not. So if you are allergic to some of these things or cannot have some of these things, by all means attempt to substitute them, because I don't know what I'm doing. I do want some salt. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I am playing around in the kitchen. So I'm gonna use a 1/8 teaspoon of some Redmond's salt. Aw, made a mess. That is sadness. I also think I'm going to use some baking powder. I know a traditional Dutch baby just uses the eggs as the leavening, and then they deflate very quickly. But given the fact that this is not using a regular all-purpose flour, I don't know how the ProFlow is going to really work. All right, I'm gonna blend her up. So, you know, I'm thinking about it. Regular all-purpose flour has gluten in it, which does give it a bit of elasticity. So I'm wondering if I shouldn't go ahead and put some gelatin in this, because I'm 99.9999997% positive that this ProFlow did not have any gelatin in it. Choices must be made. All right, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna try 1/8 teaspoon of the Zint gelatin. I've been using this stuff for years. I only have 2 hands. I really like these double-ended measuring spoons. Okay. I'm going to preheat my oven and my cast iron skillet, and I'm gonna put butter in the bottom of that. While I'm doing that, I'm gonna let this batter sit off to the side and just kind of rest. I put about 4 tablespoons of butter into my cast iron skillet. I am now gonna put this in my oven cold. And I'm going to turn my temperature up to 425. Actually, no, 450. So that's 450 on my convection oven setting. And that is going to preheat with that butter. I'm gonna watch it to make sure that my butter doesn't actually burn, but my skillet gets nice and hot and that butter fully melts into the entire bottom of that cast iron skillet. Alrighty, my oven is telling me that it's at temperature. Please do not grab a cast iron skillet without some sort of protection when pulling it from an oven. Oh my word, I've done that before. Okay, I do not want to lose too much heat, so I'm gonna gently pour this in. We're gonna bake that for about 20 minutes. That's gonna do its work, do its little magic, I hope. And in 20 minutes, we'll get to see the result. While the oven is over there working its magic on the Dutch baby batter, I have been thinking about what I'm going to put on top of my Dutch baby pancake because, you know, pancakes aren't really used to their fullest capacity if you don't use them as a vehicle for some other flavors. And I was thinking, you know, there's the powdered sweetener, like a swerve, confectioner's swerve that we could sprinkle on top, give it a solid dusting as if it were a popover or a funnel cake. We could do some sugar-free syrup. Not really into that one. And obviously butter is a fan fave for good reason. And because the size of that Dutch baby is probably enough for 2, maybe 3 people, I'm not gonna get all of the fat from those 4 tablespoons of butter. And I like my fat. I do like to have a high fat profile in my way of eating. And so I went digging through my pantry and I pulled out some super fat keto nut butter. I have the cacao coconut here. They also have a macadamia coconut that doesn't have the cacao in it. And I decided, you know, this doesn't have hazelnuts in it, right? So it's not a true Nutella dupe, but it does kind of give me sort of like Nutella adjacent. So I am going to thin this out a little bit, like in the microwave, warm it up a little bit so that it's pourable. I think I'm gonna drizzle my Dutch baby with some of this keto nut butter. This one has some solid ingredients. It has coconut, almonds, erythritol, cacao powder, some macadamia nuts, cinnamon, do love the cinnamon, salt, and some stevia. I know not everyone is able to consume nuts, and so for that, I'm so sorry. I don't really have any alternatives for you other than like the butter and the sweetener and the syrups. And ooh, jelly. Ooh, like a little fruit compote action perhaps. Over on Perfect Keto's website for these 2 days, 48 hours only, October 3rd through October 4th, they are doing a BOGO offer on the Superfats nut butters. So if you are interested in getting yourself some keto nut butters from the Superfats brand at Perfect Keto, there will be a link down in the description for you to use. I would be honored if you choose to use my link. All right, we got a whole lot of weirdness happening in here. I'm a little bit apprehensive. It's definitely not puffing up and popping over the way that a typical Dutch baby would. But my hope is it tastes good even if it doesn't look right. Yikes, we still have 9 minutes to go. We still have about 6 minutes left on this timer, but I'm apprehensive and fear it's burning. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this skillet out of the oven and see what we got. Oh, much sadness. I mean, it's golden, that's for sure. I'm gonna leave that on there so I don't accidentally burn myself. All right, it's definitely starting to burn on that zone. And it did not do a whole lot of popping up and climbing up the side walls, which does give me sadness. But it was definitely an experiment, and I'm gonna let that cool off for a minute and then try to slide it out onto a cutting board. Okay, I was wrong about warming this up. I don't think you need to warm it up because I think that the heat from the German pancake or the Dutch baby is going to be great. But it turned a little bit brownie-esque, so pivot, put an egg yolk in here, microwave it, and I think we're gonna have a delicious microwave brownie. That tastes like brownie batter without the egg. I think the egg might bring it together a little bit. So yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna get a fresh spoon and just drizzle the keto nut butter onto my German pancake once I plate that, instead of actually warming it up and having a happy little accident. Do you see how dark it is on the bottom? I feel like it tried so hard to actually like climb up the sides and do its thing, but you can't win them all. All right, I think I'm gonna go for a quarter of this. Set my clean spoon aside. So it's thin like a Dutch baby ought to be, but you know, it just doesn't have the same kind of lightness that one would hope for. All right, you need to scoot over to here. I know I'm not the only one that gets irritated with these little remnants of the packaging when trying to open jars of this nature. I know I'm not. All right, let's taste test this bad boy. Got my Dutch baby. Got to get some chocolate. This still feels pretty hot. Okay, the chocolate adds a lot to it. It's not bad. Without the chocolate, it's not as good. But it's not bad. The butteriness on the bottom side helps the crust a lot. And the chocolate obviously helps the top. It's definitely going to need some workshopping. It's a little too heavy to be able to crawl up the edges of my cast iron skillet. So I'd say this is a semi-flop. But the taste is still good. So, you know, not a total fail. Anyway, I'm gonna go finish this. It is dark outside because it is overcast like crazy here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in my next video. What is happening? Why are you so wonky? Come here, you.